Get ready to take control of your life and stop putting things off. In this audiobook, you'll discover exactly how to force yourself to take action every single day, no matter how tired, distracted, or unmotivated you feel. You'll learn practical steps you can start using today, creating a strict morning routine, breaking tasks into micro goals, eliminating distractions, and setting non-negotiable limits on your daily work. You'll also discover how to reward progress, track habits, use accountability partners, replace excuses with immediate decisions, practice action-based self-talk, and reflect nightly to improve tomorrow. By the end of this audiobook, you'll have a clear, actionable system to build discipline, boost productivity, and take consistent steps toward your goals. Each strategy is simple, practical, and designed to produce results in real life. Subscribe for more content that transforms your thinking into action and your goals into reality. Number 1. Create strict morning action routine. Every day begins with a choice. The moment the alarm rings, the mind begins its silent war. One part wants to rise and take control of the day, while the other whispers for just a few more minutes of comfort. It's in that single moment that discipline is either born or buried. Creating a strict morning action routine is not about being perfect, nor is it about punishing yourself into productivity. It's about building a structure that helps you rise above hesitation, start your day with clarity, and set the tone for consistent action. Those who control their mornings often end up controlling their lives. The morning holds power. It's a blank page, free of yesterday's mistakes and tomorrow's worries, but most people waste it by reacting, checking phones, scrolling, thinking aimlessly, and losing the most powerful hours of focus. To force yourself into action every day, your morning must be sacred. It has to become a ritual of strength, not chaos. It should not depend on motivation, because motivation is unreliable. Discipline, however, is dependable. The goal is to design mornings that run on discipline rather than mood. Start by creating a simple structure that repeats daily, regardless of circumstances. Wake up at the same time every morning, even on weekends. This consistency resets the mind and trains your body to follow command rather than comfort. The moment you open your eyes, do not bargain with yourself. The longer you lie there, the louder the excuses become. Stand up immediately, no matter how your body feels. Every time you win that first small battle, you send a message to your mind that you are in charge. The first act of the day should remind you that your decisions are stronger than your emotions. Once you are awake, avoid reaching for your phone. The mind in the early morning is clear and receptive. If you fill it with noise, messages, news, distractions, you destroy the space meant for focus. Those first minutes set the rhythm for the entire day. Instead of scrolling, take a few deep breaths. Stretch, and feel your presence in the new day. That small moment of awareness grounds you. It's not about meditation in the spiritual sense. It's about reclaiming mental space before the world's demands take over. Next, move your body. Physical movement early in the morning is not about fitness alone. It's about energy and momentum. It tells your body that it's time to perform. Whether it's a short workout, a walk, or even a few minutes of stretching, the key is movement. Movement triggers alertness and primes your brain for focus. When the body is active, the mind becomes sharper. This is how you train yourself to take action even when you don't feel ready. The discipline of movement teaches you that action creates motivation, not the other way around. After movement, dedicate time to silence and planning. Sit somewhere quiet, even for 10 minutes. Write down 3 things you will do today that matter most. Not 10, not 20, just 3 meaningful actions that move your life forward. This is how you begin controlling your attention. Too many people waste energy on low-value tasks, confusing activity with progress. When you define your top 3 tasks, you give your day purpose and direction. Each task should be something that, if completed, brings real progress toward your goals. This is how small, consistent mornings build empires over time. The next step in a strict morning routine is to create triggers that lead to action automatically. For example, after brushing your teeth, drink a glass of water. After that, write your 3 tasks. After that, start your first task. The change should be so consistent that your body begins doing it before your mind can resist. This system removes the need for willpower, which is limited and unreliable. What you are building here is not just a habit, it's automation for success. The fewer decisions you make in the morning, the more mental energy you preserve for important work. You must also protect your morning from interruptions. Create boundaries. If you live with family, inform them that your first hour is non-negotiable. No social media, no random calls, no unnecessary talk. This hour belongs to your future self. When you guard your morning fiercely, you start living with intention. People who drift through mornings with no focus tend to drift through life the same way. Those who train themselves to respect their mornings gain the inner strength to respect their goals. A strict routine does not mean a rigid or joyless life. It means creating order that frees you from chaos. Imagine your morning as a training ground for the mind. Every day you follow your routine, you reinforce self-trust. You start believing that you can depend on yourself. That quiet confidence becomes fuel for the rest of the day. You no longer wake up feeling lost or behind. You wake up knowing exactly what to do and why. The small sense of control you gain multiplies into bigger control over your entire life. There will be mornings when you don't feel like it. Days when you wake up tired, stressed, or unmotivated. Those days matter the most. The discipline you build on those mornings will shape the strength you carry through every challenge in life. The goal is not to feel good, but to act with purpose even when you don't. Discipline becomes a form of self-respect. Each time you follow through with your routine, you remind yourself that your word matters, that you are not someone who gives in to comfort or delay. That alone separates you from most people. The Stoics believed that mastery over self begins with mastery over routine. They taught that peace and power come not from controlling the outside world, but from controlling your own actions. Your morning is the perfect training field for this. When you wake early, face discomfort, and act deliberately, you align with this timeless wisdom. You learn that the body can be tired, the mind can resist, but you can still choose discipline, and that choice, repeated daily, builds unshakable strength. One of the greatest mistakes people make is waiting for motivation to strike before they act. Motivation is unstable. It comes and goes based on emotion. Discipline, however, is steady. The morning routine trains discipline by removing the need for feeling ready. You act because you decided to. You move because it is who you are becoming. That is the essence of transformation. Doing what you said you would, long after the feeling has faded. To make your morning routine sustainable, design it to fit your reality. It does not need to look like anyone else's. If you have limited time, shorten the steps but keep the structure. Even 20 minutes of focused, disciplined action each morning can change how you show up for the rest of the day. What matters is consistency, not perfection. A simple morning executed daily is more powerful than a complex one done occasionally. As the days pass, you will notice subtle changes. You will begin waking up earlier without struggle. Your thoughts will be clearer. You will feel more control over your emotions. You will start completing more in one morning than you used to do in a whole day. This shift builds momentum. You will no longer need to force yourself to act. The act will become automatic. That's when you realize the power of structure. It sets you free from the chaos of hesitation. The truth is, every morning you face a choice between discipline and delay, between progress and comfort. The person who wins that first battle wins the day. A strict morning action routine is not just a schedule, it's a daily reminder that your life is in your hands. The alarm rings, and you decide whether to serve your future or surrender to the moment. Choose the routine that builds strength, not weakness. Because the way you start your morning determines who you become when the day ends. Over time, this habit rewires your mind. It removes the identity of someone who postpones and replaces it with someone who acts. The small victory of waking early, moving with intention, and executing the plan sets the foundation for bigger victories in life. It is not just about productivity, it's about becoming the kind of person who does what needs to be done, no matter how you feel. The kind of person who leads themselves before leading anything else. Each sunrise gives you one more chance to prove to yourself that you are stronger than laziness, stronger than excuses, stronger than doubt. And that proof is found not in what you think, but in what you do. A strict morning action routine is your daily declaration that you choose growth over comfort. Once that becomes your identity, action is no longer something you must force. It becomes who you are. Number 2. Use micro goals to build momentum. Progress often feels heavy when the mind only focuses on how far there is to go. The weight of big goals can crush motivation before the first step is even taken. Most people fail to take consistent action, not because they lack ability, but because they think too far ahead. They look at the final outcome instead of the next move. This is where micro goals become powerful. They break the overwhelming into the doable. They transform hesitation into momentum. When you start small and stay steady, action becomes natural and continuous, and your progress begins to compound quietly in the background of your life. Micro goals are small, clear, and specific actions that move you forward every day. They are not random tasks, but intentional steps towards something meaningful. They shrink big ambitions into immediate, achievable wins. The beauty of this method lies in its simplicity. It removes the mental burden that stops most people before they even begin. The mind can resist a mountain, but will rarely resist a pebble. Micro goals turn mountains into a collection of pebbles, one you can cross one piece at a time without fear or exhaustion. Many people get stuck waiting for the perfect moment to begin. They wait for motivation, clarity, or more time, but action itself is the source of all three. A micro goal helps you bypass the waiting by focusing only on what can be done right now. For example, if someone wants to write a book, instead of setting the goal "write a book," the micro goal would be "write one page today." That single page repeated daily turns into hundreds of pages before you realize it. It's not the size of the action that matters, it's the consistency of it. Small actions done daily beat big actions done occasionally. When you create micro goals, the first step is clarity. You must know exactly what you want to achieve, but even more importantly, why it matters. The why gives meaning to every small step. Without a reason, small goals feel empty and motivation fades. Once your reason is strong, break the main goal into tiny, measurable parts. Each micro goal should be so easy that you can start it immediately without resistance. If it still feels heavy, break it down again. The goal is not to impress yourself with effort, it's to train your mind to act without hesitation. The key advantage of micro goals is momentum. When you complete a small task, your brain releases a sense of reward. That small hit of progress fuels the desire to keep going. The mind starts associating action with satisfaction rather than stress. You begin to crave progress because it feels achievable and rewarding. This creates a self-sustaining loop of motivation that builds naturally over time. Instead of forcing action, you begin to enjoy it. You stop fighting with your own thoughts because success becomes visible every day. It's easy to underestimate how powerful a small step can be. A single healthy meal seems insignificant compared to a diet plan, yet it begins to reshape habits. Reading for 10 minutes may not seem enough to make you wise, but 10 minutes daily over months can transform how you think. Micro goals work because they focus on repetition rather than perfection. Each repetition strengthens the behavior until it becomes automatic. When small actions become part of your identity, you no longer have to force discipline, it becomes who you are. Another important part of using micro goals effectively is tracking them. When you see progress, even in small pieces, your mind believes change is possible. A simple checklist or habit tracker can make this powerful. Every mark you make becomes proof that you are moving forward. It's visual evidence that you are consistent, and it builds trust in yourself. People often quit because they can't see progress. Tracking your micro goals solves that by making improvement visible. What gets measured gets done, and what gets done builds belief. It's important to focus on completion, not perfection. Micro goals are meant to be finished easily so you can experience the satisfaction of success. That success creates motion, and motion keeps you alive mentally. The perfectionist mindset kills progress because it demands too much too soon. When you focus on small completions, you train yourself to start and finish tasks rather than delaying them endlessly. This mental pattern carries into everything you do. You become a finisher, not just a dreamer. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you begin living through micro goals. You stop judging yourself by what you haven't achieved and start recognizing yourself for what you are doing daily. This shift removes guilt and brings peace to the process. Big goals often create anxiety because they feel out of reach. Micro goals create confidence because you can complete them today. The energy once wasted on worry turns into forward motion. This is how slow progress eventually becomes unstoppable momentum. Micro goals also make resilience stronger. When life gets difficult, big plans can feel impossible, but small goals remain manageable. Even in tough days, you can still do something small. That keeps your streak alive. It reminds you that even in chaos, you have control over your actions. This mindset separates the disciplined from the defeated. People who master micro goals never stop completely. They adjust their pace, but never their direction. That steady effort builds mental toughness quietly, day after day. To apply micro goals in daily life, start tonight. Pick one area that matters most: health, career, learning, or relationships. Define the outcome you want. Then ask, what is one thing I can do tomorrow that moves me closer to it? The answer should take no more than 15 minutes. That becomes your first micro goal. Do it. The next day, repeat the process. Don't aim for more until the action feels natural. Once it does, slightly increase the challenge. Build layer upon layer of small achievements until you realize you've built something far bigger than you expected. Discipline is not built through massive bursts of effort. It's built through small, deliberate actions that repeat until they become effortless. Micro goals train this muscle of discipline. They help you overcome the paralysis of overthinking. Each day you succeed in completing your small target. You reinforce the belief that you are capable of progress, and when belief becomes strong, bigger goals stop feeling impossible. They simply become a longer chain of small steps waiting to be completed. There will be times when progress feels slow. That's normal. The power of micro goals is invisible in the beginning. It takes patience to trust the process. The change is subtle but deep. Each small success rewires your brain to expect results from effort. You begin to realize that great things are not achieved in a single leap, but through thousands of quiet movements. The person who keeps moving, even slowly, will always outlast the one who moves fast and burns out. Over time, micro goals transform identity. You stop identifying as someone who struggles to stay consistent and start seeing yourself as a person who acts daily. That shift is the foundation of lasting success. You can no longer imagine a day without action because it feels unnatural to be idle. What started as small goals becomes a lifestyle of discipline and movement. That's when you no longer need to force yourself. The routine carries you. Every extraordinary achievement in life is the sum of ordinary actions done repeatedly. Micro goals teach this truth through experience. They remind you that progress is not about size, but about direction. A small step taken daily is infinitely more powerful than big dreams left untouched. Each time you complete a micro goal, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. Those votes accumulate into identity, and identity sustains change far longer than motivation ever could. At the end of each day, look back at your micro goals. Notice how many small victories you've had, and recognize them. Gratitude fuels consistency. When you feel proud of your daily actions, you naturally want to continue. This self-reinforcing cycle builds strength quietly. There is no magic secret to success, just repeated simple actions performed with purpose. That's what micro goals teach better than anything else. In the long run, micro goals don't just help you take action, they change how you see action itself. It stops being something you must push yourself to do and becomes something you do because it defines you. Momentum is built through movement, and movement begins with something small. One step, one task, one moment of courage. That's all it takes to start building a life driven by progress instead of procrastination. And once momentum starts rolling, it becomes almost impossible to stop. Number 3. Eliminate distractions before starting work. The greatest enemy of progress is not laziness, it is distraction. In today's world, attention has become a rare form of wealth. Every beep, vibration, and notification pulls the mind away from focus and into fragments. You may start the day with strong intentions, but one message, one scroll, one unnecessary glance at your phone is enough to destroy an hour of deep concentration. To take real action every day, you must learn the discipline of clearing your mental space before you begin. Work does not demand endless hours, it demands uninterrupted presence. That presence can only exist in a mind that is free from noise. Before you start any task that matters, you need to prepare the environment as carefully as a craftsman sharpens his tools. Focus is a delicate state. It cannot coexist with clutter, whether physical or digital. A messy desk, a buzzing phone, a cluttered desktop screen. Each of these things silently tells the brain that it is safe to drift away. You cannot build momentum while surrounded by triggers that invite distraction. Order around you creates order within you. The external space often reflects the internal state, and by cleaning one, you begin to calm the other. The first step in eliminating distractions is awareness. Most people underestimate how often their attention breaks during the day. They think they're multitasking when in truth, they are task switching, jumping rapidly between things, and losing depth with every switch. This constant shift burns energy and weakens willpower. The brain needs time to re-enter a deep state of focus after each interruption, sometimes up to 15 minutes. When you multiply that by dozens of daily distractions, you see why progress feels slow even after long hours of work. Real productivity is not about how long you sit, it's about how long you stay truly immersed. Start by identifying what steals your attention most often. Is it your phone, your browser, people around you, or your own wandering thoughts? Once you know the enemy, you can design a defense. Keep your phone away from your reach before you start working, not on silent, not on the table, but out of sight entirely. Research shows that even seeing your phone reduces focus because your brain remains partially engaged with it. Distance creates freedom. Every time you separate yourself from a distraction, you reclaim a piece of mental power. Next, prepare your physical workspace. Remove anything not connected to the task at hand. A cluttered environment constantly reminds your mind of unfinished business. A clean and minimal setup tells your brain that it's time to engage deeply with one thing. If possible, create a dedicated space for work only, no mixing of relaxation and effort in the same corner. When the brain associates a place with productivity, focus becomes easier to enter. It becomes a cue. When I sit here, I work. Small environmental cues create powerful mental responses. Technology is both the greatest tool and the greatest trap. You can use it to create, or you can let it consume you. Before starting work, close all unnecessary tabs, mute notifications, and disconnect from apps that have nothing to do with your goal. Every notification is a call to drift away from purpose. You can check your messages later, but once focus is broken, it takes time to rebuild. Treat your focus time as sacred, something you defend from the noise of the world. The truth is, most things can wait. Urgency is often an illusion created by habit. Your mind can also be a source of distraction. Sometimes the loudest noise comes from within: thoughts, worries, reminders, or sudden ideas. Before you start working, take a few minutes to empty your head. Write down anything that's bothering you or anything you want to remember later. Putting thoughts on paper gives your mind permission to let them go for now. You're not ignoring them, you're simply scheduling them for later. This small act clears space for concentration. When the mind feels heard, it calms down. Another method to prepare for focused work is to set clear boundaries with people. Many distractions come not from devices, but from others. If you live or work with others, communicate your focus time clearly. Let them know that you are unavailable for a certain period, unless it's urgent. People will eventually learn to respect your boundaries if you enforce them consistently. Protecting your attention is not rude. It is an act of respect toward your own goals. The world will always ask for your time. You must decide how much you give. Before you start your deep work session, create a short pre-work ritual. This could be making a cup of tea, organizing your workspace, or taking 3 slow breaths. The purpose of the ritual is to signal the brain that it's time to enter focus mode. When repeated daily, the ritual becomes a mental switch that helps you transition quickly into deep work. The brain loves patterns. When it recognizes the pattern, it automatically prepares for what comes next. That's how focus becomes easier with time. You train your mind to expect it. Once you begin working, commit to one single task at a time. Multitasking divides attention and weakens quality. Focus on finishing what you start, even if it's a small step. If new ideas come to mind, write them down quickly and return to your task. Don't let curiosity pull you away. Deep work requires discipline to resist the urge to wander. The more you practice this, the longer your mind can sustain concentration without fatigue. Over time, focus becomes not just a skill, but a habit of thinking deeply and completely. You must also be intentional about your digital habits outside of work hours. If you spend all day scrolling, your brain becomes addicted to instant rewards. Then, when it's time to focus, the slower pace of real work feels painful. The problem isn't that focus is hard. It's that your brain is overstimulated. To restore focus, reduce your exposure to endless scrolling, random videos, and constant notifications. The quieter your digital life, the sharper your mind becomes. Mental clarity requires emptiness somewhere in your day. Distraction thrives on lack of preparation. Before you start any important work, plan your environment, your tools, and your time window. Have water nearby. Prepare the materials you'll need. Close the door. Once you begin, there should be no reason to leave your focus zone until you finish. Preparation removes excuses. It prevents you from breaking flow because you forgot something. It's easier to stay disciplined when your surroundings make it natural. You can also use time blocks to manage attention. Divide your day into clear segments, periods for deep work and periods for rest. During focus blocks, commit fully. During breaks, step away completely. This rhythm trains your mind to work with intensity and recover effectively. It's better to have 3 hours of undisturbed focus than 10 hours of half attention. Real results come from the depth of work, not the length of time spent pretending to be busy. When you practice eliminating distractions consistently, you begin to notice how much more you can do with less time. You feel more present, less rushed, and more in control of your energy. You stop needing external noise because silence becomes productive. You realize that distraction was never just about the phone or the noise. It was about the discomfort of stillness. Most people distract themselves to avoid facing boredom, but boredom is where clarity begins. Learning to sit in that silence before work is what strengthens mental resilience. As days pass, this practice transforms your relationship with action. You stop reacting to everything that appears and start creating deliberately. Your thoughts become sharper because they are no longer scattered across 1,000 directions. You start enjoying the satisfaction of doing one thing deeply and doing it well. That sense of mastery builds confidence. Confidence builds consistency. Consistency creates results. Eliminating distractions is not about isolation, it's about alignment. It's about giving your full presence to what matters right now. Every time you clear space for focus, you honor your potential. You train your mind to serve your goals instead of chasing every impulse. That's how discipline takes root. Not through force, but through clarity. When you protect your attention, you protect your future. Each day before you begin your work, remind yourself that your focus is your most valuable possession. Treat it as something sacred. The world will always try to steal it with noise, but you have the choice to guard it fiercely. Once you experience the power of deep, undisturbed work, distractions will lose their grip. You'll crave that calm, concentrated state where time slows down and progress feels effortless. That's where real growth happens, in the quiet space you create when everything else fades away and only your purpose remains. Number 4. Set daily non-negotiable task limits. Every day brings more demands than the mind can manage. The modern world constantly pushes people to do more, to move faster, to take on endless responsibilities. But doing more rarely means achieving more. True productivity is not about the number of hours you work or the number of tasks you complete. It's about identifying what truly matters and giving your full attention to it. Setting daily non-negotiable task limits is an act of control. It's a deliberate choice to focus on the few things that truly move your life forward, rather than scattering energy across many that don't. Without limits, focus dissolves. With limits, discipline thrives. Each morning, people create long lists filled with every possible task they can think of. The list grows throughout the day, becoming a source of pressure rather than motivation. By nightfall, they've checked off a few minor things, but left the important ones untouched. This constant feeling of not enough slowly destroys motivation and creates the illusion of being busy while standing still. The solution is not to add more to your plate, but to reduce it. Limiting your tasks forces you to make decisions, and decision-making sharpens clarity. When you choose what matters most, you start moving with precision rather than chaos. Setting daily non-negotiable task limits begins with honesty. Ask yourself, what are the few actions that, if completed today, would make the day successful? Usually, it's not more than 3. These are your non-negotiables, the tasks that define progress. They should be specific, measurable, and directly linked to your larger goals. Once you decide on them, they become your responsibility, not your options. Everything else is secondary. The simplicity of this system brings freedom. You wake up knowing exactly what to do, and end the day knowing you've done what counts. Limiting tasks is not a sign of weakness or lack of ambition. It's a demonstration of wisdom. The human brain has a limited capacity for deep work each day. Trying to overload it only leads to fatigue and mediocre results. When you commit to fewer things, you give them more of your energy, attention, and care. The result is higher quality work and greater satisfaction. You no longer chase quantity, you pursue impact. The purpose of setting limits is not to do less in life, but to do what matters most with excellence. To create effective non-negotiables, start with your goals and reverse engineer them. Look at the long-term vision of what you want to achieve, then identify what small but essential step brings you closer today. That becomes your focus. Each non-negotiable should connect directly to something meaningful, something that truly contributes to your growth, your purpose, or your progress. It's easy to fill your day with comfortable but low-value tasks. Real discipline lies in choosing the uncomfortable but significant ones. These are the tasks that make you grow. Once you define your non-negotiables, commit to completing them no matter what. This is where discipline turns into power, whether you feel motivated or not, whether you have distractions or not. These tasks are non-negotiable. That word means exactly what it says. No excuses, no delays, no bargaining. They must be completed before the day ends. The mind begins to trust itself when it sees that promises are kept. Over time, you stop negotiating with your weaknesses because you've built the identity of someone who finishes what they decide. This system also helps protect your time. When you know your priorities, it becomes easier to say no to what doesn't align with them. The inability to say no is one of the biggest causes of burnout. People agree to things out of guilt or fear of missing out, and in doing so, they give away their energy to things that don't serve them. Setting non-negotiable task limits gives you a filter. You begin to measure opportunities by a simple question: does this move me toward my goals today? If the answer is no, you decline politely and stay on track. To keep this method effective, you must also respect your limits. Don't expand your list once you start your day. Adding more tasks weakens the entire system. It turns discipline into chaos. If something new appears, write it down for tomorrow, but protect today's focus. The mind works best when it knows exactly what it's responsible for. Overloading it leads to confusion and procrastination. The goal is not to end the day exhausted. It's to end the day accomplished. A powerful habit is to plan your non-negotiables the night before. This clears your mind for rest and helps you wake up with direction. When morning comes, there's no decision fatigue. You already know what needs to be done. Decision fatigue is real. Every unnecessary choice drains mental energy. By deciding early, you save willpower for execution. Preparation is part of discipline. It turns intention into structure. It's also important to categorize tasks based on their importance and energy level. High-impact work should be scheduled during your most alert hours. Reserve low-energy times for lighter activities like organizing or responding to messages. This way you use your energy wisely rather than wasting focus on things that don't matter. When you structure your day this way, even with fewer tasks, your productivity multiplies because you're working in alignment with your natural rhythm. There's a mental liberation that comes from completing what you said you would. Each time you finish your non-negotiable tasks, you end the day with peace. You no longer lie in bed thinking about what you should have done. That peace builds confidence, and confidence fuels consistency. The next day, you approach your work with more strength because you trust yourself. Momentum begins to build naturally. You realize that progress doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right things every day. Some days, life will interrupt your plans. Unexpected events will appear. The secret is to adapt without losing your commitment. If time becomes short, simplify your non-negotiables further, but never skip them. Even the smallest action toward your priority counts. Consistency matters more than perfection. Missing a day breaks rhythm and invites excuses. Keeping your streak alive, even with reduced effort, strengthens mental discipline. You prove to yourself that you can act under any condition. That's how resilience is built, by staying committed even when it's hard. Non-negotiable task limits also protect your mental health. Many people confuse busyness with importance. They fill every hour with something just to feel productive, but they end up drained and unfulfilled. When you set limits, you create space to breathe, think, and rest. Rest is not laziness. It's fuel for the next effort. The disciplined person knows that focus requires recovery. You cannot pour from an empty mind. By narrowing your daily focus, you preserve energy for what truly deserves it. To make this system sustainable, review your performance regularly. At the end of the week, look back at your non-negotiables. Did they bring you closer to your bigger goals? Were some tasks unnecessary? Adjust accordingly. The goal is to refine your focus over time. Discipline without reflection turns into rigidity, but reflection keeps it intelligent. Progress requires both consistency and awareness. Over time, you'll notice that this practice reshapes your life beyond productivity. It teaches you balance. It teaches you the value of your time and energy. You stop living reactively and start acting deliberately. Each completed task becomes a small victory, and those victories stack quietly into confidence and purpose. You begin to understand that discipline is not about doing more, but about doing what matters most, even when no one is watching. In a world that glorifies constant activity, choosing limits is an act of strength. It's a way of saying, I decide how my time is used. Setting daily non-negotiable task limits is not just a productivity method, it's a philosophy of living with clarity. It's about mastering your focus, respecting your effort, and protecting your purpose from the endless noise around you. When you live this way, every day becomes intentional. You stop chasing everything and start creating something. You stop surviving your days and start directing them. And when that happens, discipline stops being a struggle. It becomes your way of life. Number 5. Reward progress. To stay consistent. Consistency is one of the hardest things to maintain when you're trying to change your life or build new habits. Motivation fades, energy fluctuates, and sometimes your goals feel far away. That's why rewarding progress is so powerful. It gives your brain a reason to keep going. When you attach small rewards to your effort, you train your mind to associate discipline with satisfaction instead of pressure. Most people wait for the big goal before allowing themselves to feel accomplished. But progress is built in layers, and each layer deserves recognition. Rewarding yourself for progress is not self-indulgence, it's smart psychology. It transforms hard work into a cycle of motivation that keeps you consistent, even when the journey gets tough. The human brain thrives on feedback. When you accomplish something, even small, your brain releases dopamine, a chemical that makes you feel good. This creates a natural loop of desire to repeat the behavior. But when you constantly push yourself without any acknowledgement, the mind starts to associate effort with exhaustion. That's when people burn out or lose interest. Rewarding progress corrects this imbalance. It turns effort into something meaningful. You start working not just out of obligation, but out of enjoyment. This is the secret to lasting consistency, not punishment but positive reinforcement. Start by defining what progress means to you. Don't think only in terms of massive wins. Break your goals into measurable milestones. For example, if you're trying to exercise daily, progress might be completing 5 consecutive days of workouts. If you're trying to study more, progress might be finishing a chapter without distractions. The smaller the milestone, the more frequently you can celebrate. These small celebrations create a rhythm that keeps momentum alive. When you reward progress, you signal to your brain that the effort is worth it, and that signal is what keeps you coming back tomorrow. Rewards don't need to be extravagant or expensive. They just need to feel meaningful. Sometimes, a break after finishing a task can be a reward. Sometimes, it's a favorite snack, a few minutes of relaxation, or watching something you enjoy. The point isn't the size of the reward, but its timing and emotional connection. It must feel like a genuine acknowledgement of your effort. For bigger milestones, you can plan something more special, a dinner out, a small gift, or a day off. The key is to make the reward proportional to the effort, so it stays balanced and motivating. Many people make the mistake of thinking they should only reward perfection. They believe they don't deserve recognition until they've reached the end goal. But perfectionism kills progress. Waiting until everything is done before celebrating makes the process feel endless. It's better to reward consistency than perfection. If you show up every day and do what you said you would, that's worth celebrating. Over time, this mindset builds stronger discipline than any punishment ever could. Progress is about direction, not speed. As long as you're moving forward, you're winning. You can also use visual rewards to track your growth. Humans are motivated by what they can see. Use a progress tracker, journal, or calendar to mark completed tasks. Seeing visible evidence of your effort builds pride and reinforces the belief that your actions matter. Each mark on the page represents a day of follow-through, a day where you chose progress over comfort. The visual feedback acts like a mirror that reflects your growth, and the more you see, the more you want to keep going. Over time, these visual rewards become proof of your consistency and a source of inner confidence. It's also helpful to connect your rewards to your values. For example, if one of your goals is to be healthier, don't reward yourself with habits that undo your progress. Instead, choose something that aligns with your overall mission, like buying new workout gear, taking a relaxing walk, or preparing a healthy meal you enjoy. When your rewards match your values, they strengthen your commitment rather than distract from it. You begin to see that discipline and enjoyment don't need to be separate. They can exist together in harmony. Another effective way to reward progress is through reflection. Take time at the end of each week to look back at what you've accomplished. Write down what went well, what you improved, and how you felt about your efforts. This kind of self-reflection is a mental reward. It gives your mind the satisfaction of closure and understanding. You begin to see patterns of success, which helps you plan better for the future. Reflection is one of the most overlooked rewards because it doesn't involve material gain, but it provides emotional clarity and motivation that can't be replaced. Rewards can also be social. Sharing your progress with a friend or community can give you a sense of encouragement and accountability. Humans are social creatures. We thrive on recognition. When someone appreciates your effort, it strengthens your self-belief. However, this doesn't mean you should rely entirely on external validation. The goal is to create an internal sense of satisfaction that grows stronger with each achievement. But sharing milestones occasionally helps you feel supported, especially on the days when motivation is low. Consistency depends on how you treat yourself along the journey. If your self-talk is harsh, your mind resists effort. If your self-talk is encouraging, your mind begins to cooperate. Rewarding progress is a way of being kind to yourself while still staying disciplined. It's a balance between accountability and compassion. Too much pressure leads to rebellion, but balanced discipline feels sustainable. You become your own supporter, not your critic. When you feel supported by your own mindset, consistency becomes natural rather than forced. Over time, rewarding progress builds a habit loop. You act, you feel good, you repeat. The loop becomes stronger until it runs automatically. At this stage, discipline no longer feels like a fight. It becomes a habit you look forward to. Every small win you celebrate reinforces the belief that you're capable and in control. This belief is what separates those who quit from those who keep going. The mind needs evidence of progress, and rewards are that evidence in action. It's important to adjust your rewards as you evolve. What feels motivating now might not feel the same 6 months later. As you grow, your definition of reward will also change. At first, it might be about treating yourself after effort. Later, the reward might simply be the satisfaction of completing the work itself. The goal is to reach a point where discipline becomes its own reward. When that happens, external rewards become optional because the feeling of progress is fulfilling enough. But until you reach that level, give yourself the support you need to stay consistent. Be careful not to over-reward or use rewards as an escape from effort. The purpose of rewarding progress is to motivate, not to create dependency. The reward should enhance your habit, not replace it. Always connect it directly to effort. No effort, no reward. This keeps the relationship between action and pleasure balanced and productive. The more intentional you are with this process, the more powerful it becomes. Consistency is not about pushing yourself harder. It's about staying connected to your purpose. When you reward your progress, you're not just giving yourself a treat. You're reinforcing your identity as someone who follows through. Every small recognition you give yourself tells your mind, "This is who I am now." That identity is what sustains consistency when motivation fades. You no longer rely on temporary emotions, you rely on built confidence. The journey toward growth is long, and it's easy to lose sight of how far you've come. Rewarding progress keeps your focus balanced between where you're going and what you've already achieved. It reminds you that effort matters. It turns the process into something you can actually enjoy instead of endure. And when the process becomes enjoyable, consistency stops being a struggle. It becomes your natural state. Over time, the act of rewarding progress teaches you a deeper lesson, that success isn't built in one grand moment, but in thousands of small steps, each one honored, appreciated, and rewarded along the way. Number 6. Track habits using visual progress chart. Tracking your habits using a visual progress chart is one of the most effective ways to build consistency and long-term discipline. It transforms abstract effort into visible proof. When you can see your progress, your brain connects effort with results, and that visual evidence becomes fuel for motivation. Without a visual record, days tend to blend together and you lose awareness of how much you've actually accomplished. But when you track habits on a chart, every small action leaves a mark, and that mark serves as a reminder that you're moving forward. Progress becomes something you can touch, something you can measure, and that turns discipline into something real and rewarding. Most people underestimate the power of seeing their habits on paper or a screen. They rely on memory to measure their growth, but memory is unreliable. The mind tends to exaggerate failures and downplay wins. A visual chart brings balance back to your perception. It doesn't rely on feelings, it relies on facts. You either did the habit or you didn't. Each mark you make on the chart is evidence that you kept your word to yourself. And when you keep your word repeatedly, even in small ways, self-respect grows. That respect turns into momentum, and momentum turns into consistency. The human brain loves patterns. When you use a visual chart, you start to see your behavior in patterns. You notice which days you're most productive, which habits come easier, and which ones you tend to skip. This awareness gives you control. You stop guessing about your effort and start understanding it. You might notice, for example, that your motivation dips every Friday, or that you tend to break routines after a stressful day. With that knowledge, you can adjust your plan instead of repeating the same mistakes unconsciously. The chart becomes your mirror. It reflects your behavior back to you so you can improve it with clarity. Creating a habit chart doesn't require anything fancy. You can use a notebook, a wall calendar, a spreadsheet, or even an app. The format doesn't matter as much as the consistency of using it. Start by writing down the habits you want to track. These should be specific and measurable. Read for 20 minutes, exercise for 30 minutes, write one page, avoid social media before noon. Whatever your goals are, make them clear enough that there's no confusion about whether you did them or not. Then, every day, mark your completion with a symbol, an X, a check mark, or a colored box. That small mark becomes a symbol of discipline, a visual signature of effort that accumulates over time. At first, the chart might look sparse. There may be gaps where you missed days, but don't see those gaps as failure. They're data. They show you where the pattern broke, so you can fix it. Each blank space on the chart is a learning point, not a reason to quit. As the days pass, the number of filled boxes grows, and you begin to see the visual chain of your consistency forming. That chain has psychological power. The more connected it becomes, the harder it is to break. You start telling yourself, I can't miss today because I don't want to break my streak. This is one of the simplest yet most effective forms of accountability you can build for yourself. Tracking habits visually also helps you measure effort rather than results. Often, people quit because they don't see immediate external outcomes. They go to the gym for a week and don't notice physical changes. They write daily but don't have a finished book. They save money for a month but don't see a major difference in their account. The problem isn't lack of progress, it's lack of visible evidence. The chart fills that gap. Even if external results take time, you can still see your internal effort building day by day. That keeps you emotionally invested long enough for real results to appear. There's also a deeper psychological shift that happens when you track habits visually. You begin to develop identity-based discipline. You stop thinking of habits as things you have to do and start seeing them as things that define who you are. Every mark on that chart says, I am the kind of person who follows through. It's a subtle but powerful transformation. Discipline becomes less about forcing yourself and more about aligning with your identity. Once that identity is formed, habits become natural. The chart helps solidify that identity by giving you visual evidence that it's true. You can make your chart more motivating by adding colors or symbols that mean something to you. Maybe each color represents a different type of habit. Blue for physical, green for mental, yellow for emotional, red for financial. The more visually engaging your chart is, the more satisfying it becomes to update it. Humans are visual beings. Our brains are drawn to color, pattern, and symmetry. When you make the process enjoyable to look at, you increase the likelihood that you'll stick with it. It's not just about tracking, it's about making progress visually appealing. Another advantage of using a progress chart is that it removes emotional bias from your self-evaluation. There will be days when you feel unproductive even though you've done a lot, and days when you feel accomplished despite doing little. The chart keeps you grounded in reality. You can look at it and see the truth. You can't argue with a chart full of marks. It's undeniable proof of effort. This helps you develop objectivity and emotional control, both of which are essential for self-mastery. You stop judging yourself based on fleeting emotions and start measuring based on consistent evidence. Some people find it helpful to track not just whether they did a habit, but also how well they did it. For instance, if your goal is to read daily, you could rate each session from 1 to 5 based on focus. This gives you insight into quality, not just quantity. It also helps you spot trends. Maybe your focus is low on days when you sleep poorly, or high when you plan your schedule better. These patterns teach you how to optimize your life instead of guessing what works. The more data you collect, the more accurate your self-understanding becomes. There's also something deeply satisfying about filling out your chart at the end of the day. It's a moment of closure, a small ritual that tells your brain the day is complete. It gives you a sense of control and stability. Even if the day was chaotic, marking that one box reminds you that you still did something meaningful. Over time, this act becomes a quiet form of meditation, a pause where you honor your effort and prepare for tomorrow. It's not just about the data, it's about the feeling of pride that comes with seeing your growth documented in front of you. Some people resist tracking habits because they fear it will feel rigid or controlling, but in truth, it's the opposite. A visual chart gives you freedom. It frees you from confusion about whether you're making progress. It frees you from self-doubt. It frees you from wasted effort. You no longer have to wonder if what you're doing is working. You can see it clearly, and when you can see it, you can improve it. Freedom doesn't come from avoiding structure. It comes from mastering it. The chart is simply a tool to help you build that mastery. If you ever feel unmotivated or stuck, look at your chart. Let it remind you of the work you've already done. Every mark on it represents a day you didn't give up. Those marks are proof that you are capable of consistency, even on hard days. That proof is worth more than any motivational quote or external praise. It's your personal history of discipline, written one small action at a time. The power of tracking habits visually is that it removes the mystery from progress. You no longer rely on hope, you rely on evidence. And when progress becomes visible, motivation becomes sustainable. The habit chart doesn't just show you what you've done, it shows you who you're becoming. Over time, you realize that the goal isn't just to fill boxes, it's to build a character defined by reliability and self-respect. The chart is simply the reflection of that process, a quiet witness to your transformation, one mark, one day, one decision at a time. Number 7. Use accountability partners for discipline. Discipline is not just a personal challenge, it is also a social one. The human mind is incredibly responsive to accountability. When you have someone who is aware of your goals and progress, your actions are no longer isolated. You begin to feel a natural obligation to show up because someone else is counting on you. This is the core of accountability partners. They turn private effort into a shared responsibility, and shared responsibility creates a powerful force for consistent action. Without such a structure, self-discipline relies entirely on internal motivation, which fluctuates. With it, your drive is amplified by connection and expectation. The first step in using an accountability partner effectively is choosing the right person. Not everyone can provide the support needed to maintain consistency. The ideal partner is someone reliable who will ask questions, notice patterns, and challenge you when necessary. They should care about your growth and understand your goals, but they don't need to be an expert. The power comes from their presence and observation, not their ability to solve your problems. When you select carefully, you create a dynamic where both of you can push each other to higher levels of discipline. Once you have chosen your accountability partner, communication becomes crucial. Clear expectations should be set from the start. Determine how often you will check in, what types of progress will be shared, and how feedback will be delivered. Regular reporting is essential. It keeps the rhythm consistent. If you avoid updates or delay them, accountability loses its power. When both parties commit to structured communication, accountability turns into a habit itself, one that reinforces discipline beyond the individual level. Accountability partners serve multiple roles. They are observers, cheerleaders, critics, and mirrors. They notice when patterns emerge that you might overlook. For instance, if you consistently fail to take action at a certain time of day, your partner can point it out. They also celebrate victories, which strengthens motivation. At the same time, they hold you responsible when you falter. This combination of support and challenge creates a balance that fuels consistent effort. Humans respond strongly to social expectations. Knowing someone else is paying attention increases follow-through dramatically. There is also a psychological mechanism at work. Accountability taps into the desire for social approval and the avoidance of embarrassment. When you have shared your commitment, failing to act feels heavier than it would in private. This is not about fear, it's about respect for yourself and your promises. Your partner's awareness creates an external structure that makes excuses harder to justify. You begin to internalize the expectation, and gradually your discipline strengthens even when your partner is not present. Accountability partners are especially useful for long-term goals, where daily action can feel repetitive and motivation may wane. When the end is far away, progress can seem invisible. But knowing that someone else will check on you adds immediate pressure to maintain consistency. Even on days when you feel unmotivated or tired, the social contract nudges you forward. Over time, this repeated pattern builds resilience, as you learn to act not just when you feel like it, but because your word is binding. The practice becomes part of your character. To make accountability work, it's essential to be honest and transparent. Hide mistakes or exaggerate effort, and the system collapses. True progress requires vulnerability. Admit when you fall short and share why it happened. This level of honesty strengthens the relationship and reinforces your own self-awareness. Accountability partners are not judges. They are catalysts for improvement. By opening up, you allow constructive feedback to shape your actions and refine your habits. It's a dynamic of mutual trust and growth that cannot function without sincerity. The structure of accountability can vary depending on what works for you and your partner. Some people benefit from daily check-ins, while others thrive with weekly summaries. Some prefer written updates, others prefer verbal conversations. The form is less important than consistency and engagement. The rhythm of regular feedback, however it is delivered, is what sustains momentum. Knowing that a report will be made at a set time keeps attention focused and minimizes the temptation to procrastinate. Accountability partners can also serve as co-creators of goals and strategies. Discussing your objectives with someone else often clarifies priorities, uncovers blind spots, and generates solutions you might not have thought of alone. A partner can help you break down intimidating goals into actionable steps. They can suggest ways to track progress more effectively or encourage micro goals that maintain momentum. The act of verbalizing your plans to someone else strengthens commitment and crystallizes your intention. One of the most effective tools is public accountability. Announcing your goals to a partner and committing to regular updates increases follow-through dramatically. When actions are observed, the brain treats them as more meaningful. Social reinforcement encourages persistence. The commitment extends beyond mere words. It becomes an energetic contract that affects both your actions and your mindset. Knowing that your progress or lack of it will be visible provides a powerful motivator to stay disciplined. Another advantage of accountability is that it builds emotional resilience. Life is unpredictable. There will be days of distraction, fatigue, or emotional stress. On these days, the presence of a partner helps you persist. They remind you of your commitment, encourage you to continue, and reduce the tendency to rationalize inaction. The support is both emotional and structural. You learn that discipline is not a solitary struggle, but something reinforced through connection. Over time, this strengthens mental endurance and helps maintain consistency even without active oversight. Accountability also helps reinforce habits that are otherwise invisible. Many small daily actions are easy to skip because they don't provide immediate feedback. Your partner becomes the witness to these small but critical behaviors, ensuring they are not ignored. The cumulative effect is significant. Daily habits compound into meaningful progress, and the partner's attention ensures that these actions are recognized, sustained, and refined. The relationship is reciprocal. Each partner holds the other to their commitments. This mutual responsibility strengthens discipline for both people. It also creates a shared sense of progress and achievement. Success becomes more than personal. It becomes relational. Sharing victories and setbacks adds depth to the experience of growth. You learn to value your own effort more deeply because it is observed, acknowledged, and respected. It's also useful to pair accountability with tangible tracking methods. Combine verbal or written check-ins with charts, logs, or visual progress markers. This dual system reinforces the psychological impact of discipline. Your partner observes and comments, while the chart shows real-time progress. The combination of social and visual feedback makes the habit loop more powerful and harder to break. Ultimately, accountability partners transform the abstract idea of discipline into a concrete, actionable system. They create social pressure, emotional support, and strategic insight that magnify consistency. When used effectively, they turn solo effort into shared responsibility, which dramatically increases the likelihood of sustained progress. Over time, you internalize the principles of accountability. You begin to hold yourself to the same standard, even without oversight. Discipline becomes second nature, reinforced by the habits, insights, and structures developed through partnership. Using accountability partners is not a crutch. It is a force multiplier. It multiplies motivation, magnifies focus, and accelerates growth. Every check-in, every conversation, every reflection strengthens your commitment to action. It turns intention into performance and transforms abstract goals into lived reality. With the right partner, accountability becomes a powerful engine that keeps you moving forward consistently, even when the path is difficult or the journey long. Over time, the combination of partnership and personal responsibility forms a durable, unshakable habit of discipline that carries forward into every aspect of life. Number 8. Replace excuses with immediate decisions. Excuses are the silent thieves of progress. They disguise themselves as valid reasons and quietly convince the mind that delay, inaction, or avoidance is acceptable. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," or "I don't have time," or "I'm too tired," you are handing power away from yourself and giving it to circumstances that are not in your control. Excuses are seductive because they feel justified. They make the mind faithful in the short term while slowly eroding ambition, confidence, and momentum. To force yourself to take action every day, you must replace excuses with immediate decisions, decisions that create movement instead of hesitation. This shift transforms your relationship with responsibility and creates a mindset where action is inevitable. The first step in replacing excuses is awareness. Most excuses are automatic. They arise before conscious thought. They often come as mental narratives. "I can't do this because," or "I'll start tomorrow because." The moment you recognize an excuse forming, pause and analyze it. Ask yourself if it is a legitimate barrier or simply a rationalization to avoid discomfort. Almost always, excuses mask fear, laziness, or indecision. By identifying their true nature, you expose them and strip them of power. Awareness is the foundation. You cannot change what you cannot see. Immediate decisions are the antidote to excuses. Once an excuse appears, instead of entertaining it, decide immediately what action will follow. It doesn't have to be perfect or fully planned. It just needs to be movement. For example, if the thought "I'm too tired to work" arises, the immediate decision could be, "I will work for just 10 minutes. Action breaks the inertia that excuses thrive on. Even a small step activates momentum. Often once you begin, energy and focus increase naturally, and the initial hesitation dissolves. Decision precedes motivation, not the other way around. A key strategy is to reframe the situation in terms of action rather than justification. Excuses tend to create narratives that justify delay. Replace that narrative with one of choice. Instead of saying, "I have too many tasks," decide, "I will complete one meaningful task now." Instead of "I don't have enough time," decide, "I will dedicate the next 20 minutes fully to this goal." Framing reality as a series of decisions empowers you. It shifts focus from limitations to possibilities. You begin to see that obstacles are not reasons to stop. They are triggers to decide. Immediate decisions also require eliminating overthinking. Many excuses stem from the mind attempting to analyze every detail before acting. The result is paralysis. Overthinking gives the brain the illusion of preparation while it actually avoids risk and effort. To counter this, set a strict rule. When a choice arises, decide within a few seconds. Give your mind the signal that action is mandatory. This trains the habit of responsiveness, where hesitation becomes rare. The more you practice immediate decisions, the less power excuses hold. Discipline is strengthened when decisions are tied to clarity and purpose. Know what matters most and what your priorities are. When an excuse arises, compare it against your priorities. If the excuse conflicts with your goal, it has no validity. The decision should always favor forward movement. Over time, your brain begins to internalize this principle. Excuses no longer feel persuasive because the standard for action is already set. You act because you value results more than comfort. One effective method is to prepare pre-decided actions for common excuses. Anticipate the obstacles you encounter regularly and plan immediate responses. For instance, if you tend to skip workouts due to tiredness, prepare a default decision. If I feel tired, I will exercise for 15 minutes. If distractions tempt you during writing, decide in advance. I will silence notifications and write for 25 minutes. Pre-decided actions remove hesitation. When the moment comes, you no longer debate, you act. This practice transforms excuses into triggers for action instead of barriers. Accountability strengthens this process. Share your commitment to immediate decisions with someone who can hold you responsible. Knowing that someone else is observing your follow-through makes excuses harder to justify. The mind is sensitive to social expectation. Even subtle accountability magnifies discipline. When excuses are observed, they lose legitimacy. The combination of internal decision-making and external observation creates a reinforcing loop where action becomes habitual. It's important to pair immediate decisions with measurable outcomes. Action alone without evaluation can create busy work instead of meaningful progress. After deciding and acting, assess the impact of your choice. Did the 10 minutes of work move the goal forward? Did the small step generate momentum? Linking decisions with results strengthens the connection between effort and consequence. This connection trains your mind to value immediate action and reduces the appeal of excuses further. Replace internal dialogue that supports procrastination with action-oriented statements. Thoughts like, "I'll do it later," or "I'm not ready yet," should be met with, "I am starting now," or "I can take the first step immediately." Language shapes perception. By altering the words you use internally, you rewire your mind to respond with decisiveness rather than hesitation. Excuses lose their emotional power because your focus shifts from justification to action. Physical cues also reinforce immediate decisions. Create environments where action is easy and delay is inconvenient. Place tools, materials, or reminders where they are instantly accessible. If your environment supports movement, excuses have fewer footholds. Conversely, environments that are cluttered or disorganized increase the likelihood of hesitation. Discipline is easier when action is the default path. Combine this with mental preparation, and excuses begin to fade naturally. Immediate decisions cultivate confidence. Each time you act without giving in to an excuse, you reinforce self-trust. The mind starts to see itself as capable of following through regardless of circumstance. Excuses lose credibility because the evidence of action outweighs the desire for avoidance. Over weeks and months, this practice reshapes your self-identity. You are no longer someone who negotiates with hesitation. You are someone who acts decisively. Decisions become reflexive, and procrastination becomes rare. Another technique is to treat every excuse as a challenge rather than a reason to stop. When the mind says, "I'm too tired," respond with, "I choose to move forward anyway." This shifts the relationship from resistance to mastery. Life always presents discomfort, uncertainty, or inconvenience. Excuses arise naturally, but they only have power if you grant it. Immediate decisions transform obstacles into opportunities to exercise willpower, resilience, and focus. Every time you respond decisively, you reinforce the habit of action under any condition. Celebrate small victories of decisiveness. Each moment you act instead of rationalizing is proof that you are capable. Reflection at the end of the day can reinforce this positive feedback. Looking back at the decisions you made, rather than the excuses you avoided, strengthens your resolve. The brain learns to seek more moments of immediate action because it associates them with competence and progress. Over time, this becomes automatic. Action precedes thought, and hesitation is minimal. Replacing excuses with immediate decisions is not about eliminating challenges. It is about mastering your response to them. Life will continue to throw obstacles, fatigue, and uncertainty at you. Excuses will always be present, but your choice is whether to respond with delay or decisiveness. By committing to immediate decisions, you build a mental environment where action is the norm. Hesitation is rare, and results accumulate steadily. This practice trains not just productivity, but character. It creates a mind that respects commitments, values effort, and consistently takes the steps required to achieve meaningful goals. Ultimately, the act of replacing excuses with immediate decisions teaches a profound truth. Control over your actions begins with control over your mind. Excuses are externalizations of weakness, but decisions are internal expressions of strength. Each choice to act immediately strengthens willpower, reinforces discipline, and builds the momentum necessary to take action every day. When this becomes a habit, excuses no longer dictate your life. Decisions dictate it, and through them, progress becomes inevitable, sustainable, and unstoppable. Number 9. Practice action-based self-talk daily. Self-talk is the silent force that shapes every action you take. It operates constantly, whether you notice it or not, guiding your decisions, influencing your emotions, and determining the quality of your focus. Most people allow this inner dialogue to run unchecked, and often it is filled with hesitation, doubt, and excuses. Statements like "I can't," "I'll do it later," or "I'm not ready" dominate the mind, creating a barrier to consistent action. To force yourself to take action every day, you must transform self-talk into a deliberate, action-based practice. Action-based self-talk is not merely motivational phrasing. It is a method of speaking to yourself in ways that directly stimulate movement, decision, and progress. The first step in cultivating this practice is awareness. Begin noticing the language you use internally when facing tasks or challenges. Many thoughts occur automatically, and most of them are negative or passive. They convince the mind to hesitate or avoid discomfort. Awareness allows you to intercept these patterns. By recognizing unproductive thoughts as they arise, you create the space to replace them with purposeful, action-oriented statements. This process is essential because you cannot change what you do not observe. Once you are aware, start replacing passive or limiting phrases with direct, actionable language. Instead of saying, "I might start this later," say, "I am starting now," instead of, "I don't feel motivated." Affirm, "I will take one step now, and momentum will follow." The distinction may seem subtle, but it is profound. Action-based self-talk does not rely on mood, inspiration, or external conditions. It signals to the mind that effort comes first and that emotion will follow. Over time, these statements build an automatic reflex toward action. Consistency in practice is crucial. Make it a daily habit to engage in action-based self-talk, ideally at key moments. Upon waking, before beginning work, when facing a challenge, and whenever hesitation arises. The brain learns through repetition. Each time you reinforce action-oriented statements, neural pathways strengthen, making decisive behavior increasingly automatic. Habits of procrastination weaken as the new pathways become dominant. Speaking to yourself in action-based terms rewires the mind to associate effort with identity rather than obligation. Action-based self-talk also involves specificity. General statements like "I will work hard today" are weaker than precise, tangible directives. Say instead, "I will write 500 words in the next hour," or "I will complete the first section of my project by noon." Specificity provides clarity and removes ambiguity. The mind responds to concrete instructions because they are measurable. Every small completed step reinforces the practice and increases confidence in your ability to follow through. Specific statements prevent the brain from rationalizing delay and provide immediate direction for action. Another critical element is framing challenges as opportunities through language, instead of internalizing obstacles as threats. "This is too difficult for me." Use self-talk to approach them proactively. I will tackle this step by step until it is done. Action-based self-talk transforms mental resistance into structured effort. It focuses on what you can do immediately rather than what might go wrong. This mindset is powerful because it turns the act of beginning into a priority, reducing hesitation and procrastination. You can amplify this effect by verbalizing your statements aloud. Speaking increases commitment because it engages additional senses, hearing, speaking, and seeing the movement of your lips and body. Vocalization makes the commitment feel more real. When you say, "I am completing this task now," out loud, it activates a stronger psychological response than silent thinking. The body and mind begin to act in unison, reinforcing the habit of action over reflection or avoidance. Pairing self-talk with micro-actions strengthens results. Every time you use action-based language, follow it immediately with a small, tangible step. For instance, if your statement is, "I will organize my workspace now," immediately begin clearing a single area. The physical act anchors the verbal commitment, creating a feedback loop where language drives motion, and motion reinforces language. Over time, your brain starts to expect that words are followed by action, reducing internal resistance to future tasks. It is also essential to align self-talk with identity. Phrases like, "I am someone who completes what I start," or "I act decisively every day," reinforce the connection between your actions and your self-perception. Identity-driven statements are more powerful than goal-oriented statements alone because they create internal standards. You do not act merely to achieve a task. You act because your behavior aligns with who you believe yourself to be. Action-based self-talk shapes character, not just habits. Accountability enhances the practice. Share your action-based self-talk strategies with a partner or mentor. This external reinforcement creates additional pressure to follow through. When others are aware of your commitments, the mind treats them as obligations beyond yourself. External observation amplifies the internal momentum generated by self-directed statements, creating a cycle where speech, action, and feedback strengthen each other. Reflection is another layer. At the end of the day, review your statements and actions. Did your self-talk lead to tangible results? Were there moments when hesitation overcame your affirmations? Use this reflection to refine your phrasing. Action-based self-talk is iterative. It improves with observation and adjustment. By analyzing what language produces the best response, you create increasingly effective internal guidance. Over time, your statements become sharper, more precise, and more compelling, generating a stronger pull toward action. Visualization strengthens the impact of self-talk. Combine action-based phrases with a mental picture of completing the task successfully. Picture the steps, the effort, and the completion. Visualization activates the same neural circuits as physical action, priming your mind to follow through. When language, mental imagery, and intention align, action flows more naturally. This multi-sensory engagement solidifies the habit of acting decisively, even when challenges arise. It is critical to maintain positivity in phrasing without diluting realism. Action-based self-talk should avoid empty optimism that ignores the effort required. Statements like, "I will take this difficult step now and complete it one part at a time," acknowledge the challenge while committing to action. Realistic acknowledgement, paired with immediate decision-making, empowers the mind rather than deceives it. The combination of honesty and action creates a resilient mindset capable of navigating obstacles without faltering. The benefits extend beyond productivity. Action-based self-talk fosters confidence, focus, and emotional regulation. Each day you reinforce decisive, effort-driven language. Your belief in your capability strengthens. Mental resistance to challenges diminishes, and motivation becomes more reliable because it is tied to behavior rather than fleeting feelings. The practice builds a psychological foundation for sustained personal growth. Finally, the ultimate power of action-based self-talk is that it transforms intention into habit. The mind learns to respond to verbal cues with immediate effort. Hesitation, indecision, and excuses lose influence. By practicing daily, you cultivate a seamless connection between thought, speech, and action. This habit ensures that progress is continuous, momentum is maintained, and self-discipline becomes intrinsic. Action-based self-talk is not merely a motivational tool, it is a framework for mastering yourself, one deliberate statement and one decisive action at a time. Number 10. Reflect nightly to improve tomorrow. Reflection is a tool that transforms experience into knowledge, and knowledge into improvement. It is not just a passive look back at the day, it is an active practice of analysis, awareness, and planning. Most people rush through life without examining what they did, how they felt, and what they learned. As a result, mistakes are repeated, habits remain unbroken, and opportunities for growth are lost. Nightly reflection provides a structured opportunity to pause, assess, and prepare. By reviewing the day deliberately, you create a feedback loop that informs tomorrow's actions, turning experience into actionable insight. The first step in reflection is creating a consistent routine. Choose a fixed time each night, preferably before sleep, to examine your day. The mind is more receptive during these quiet hours, free from the distractions and demands that dominate daylight. Consistency matters because reflection, like any habit, becomes more effective when repeated. When nightly reflection becomes automatic, the practice shifts from effortful to instinctive. The more regularly you engage with it, the sharper your self-awareness becomes, and the more accurate your insights will be. Reflection requires honesty. It is tempting to sugarcoat failures, ignore mistakes, or overemphasize accomplishments. Real growth, however, comes from seeing reality clearly. Examine what you accomplished, what you struggled with, and where your effort fell short. Ask yourself why certain goals were met or missed, and consider the patterns that influenced your behavior. Honest assessment eliminates blind spots. It allows you to identify recurring obstacles, ineffective strategies, or mental habits that hinder progress. Without honesty, reflection becomes an empty exercise, offering the illusion of learning without producing change. Structuring your reflection is critical. Start by reviewing your key actions. Did you follow through on commitments? Were tasks completed to the standard you intended? Did you take deliberate steps toward your larger goals? Record your observations in a journal or log. Writing creates clarity and permanence, allowing you to see trends over time. When you externalize your thoughts, they become more organized, and your mind is freed from the clutter of unexamined experience. Next, examine your emotions and responses. Reflection is not just about productivity. It is also about understanding your internal state. How did you react under pressure? Did frustration, fear, or distraction influence your decisions? By connecting actions with emotions, you gain insight into the triggers that disrupt performance. Understanding these links allows you to intervene proactively in the future, adjusting your environment, mindset, or approach to prevent repeated setbacks. Emotional awareness is essential for sustainable self-discipline. Identify patterns and lessons. Each day contains subtle signals that point to improvements or inefficiencies. Perhaps certain times of day are more productive, certain strategies more effective, or certain habits undermine your consistency. By noting these patterns, you accumulate a repository of practical knowledge. Small observations compound over time, creating a framework for ongoing optimization. Nightly reflection ensures that lessons are captured before they fade, making each day's experience a building block rather than a forgotten moment. Set specific intentions for tomorrow. Reflection without action is incomplete. Once you have reviewed today, translate insights into concrete plans. Determine what actions will improve performance, which habits need reinforcement, and how obstacles can be addressed. Make decisions in advance about priorities, strategies, and focus areas. This forward-looking component transforms reflection from retrospective observation into proactive preparation. You enter tomorrow equipped with clarity, purpose, and readiness, reducing hesitation and wasted effort. Celebrate progress. Reflection is not only about identifying shortcomings, it is also about acknowledging achievements. Recognizing accomplishments, no matter how small, reinforces positive behavior and strengthens motivation. Record the wins, the milestones reached, and the effort invested. By highlighting progress alongside challenges, you maintain balance and avoid discouragement. Reflection becomes a tool for reinforcement as well as improvement, creating a mindset where effort is consistently validated. Reflection can also include scenario analysis. Consider how alternative actions could have changed outcomes. What would have happened if you acted earlier, made a different decision, or adjusted your approach? This exercise trains the mind to think critically and strategically. It enhances problem-solving skills, preparing you to respond more effectively to similar situations in the future. By imagining alternatives, you cultivate adaptability, foresight, and resilience, which are essential for continuous improvement. Another essential aspect is accountability to yourself. Nightly reflection creates a record of your commitments, actions, and outcomes. Over time, this becomes a personal history that cannot be ignored. It provides a mirror for integrity, showing whether you are living up to your stated intentions. The act of reviewing your day holds you accountable to your own standards, reinforcing discipline and self-respect. The consistency of this practice trains the mind to expect regular evaluation, which enhances decision-making and follow-through. Incorporate gratitude and perspective into reflection. Recognize what worked well and what resources, people, or circumstances supported your efforts. Gratitude shifts focus from frustration to empowerment, strengthening resilience. It also provides context for challenges, reducing the tendency to overreact or internalize setbacks. Reflection grounded in perspective allows you to see the full picture of your growth, not just isolated successes or failures. This balanced view fosters mental clarity and long-term motivation. Reflection can also be used to refine priorities. Daily life presents competing demands, and without deliberate assessment, focus can drift. By reviewing what mattered most and what consumed attention inefficiently, you gain insight into real priorities. This allows you to adjust your plans for tomorrow, allocating energy to the areas that produce the greatest impact. Prioritization, through nightly reflection, ensures that effort aligns with goals, reducing wasted time and improving results. Reflection should be approached as an iterative process. Each day provides new data, and each night's analysis informs tomorrow's action. Improvement is gradual and cumulative. Patterns become apparent, strategies evolve, and performance steadily improves. The brain begins to anticipate this review, and mental clarity becomes sharper. Reflection is not a one-time task, but a lifelong habit that compounds understanding, skill, and self-mastery. Finally, reflection creates mental closure. Ending the day with a deliberate review separates past effort from future action. It allows you to release unfinished business mentally, reduce cognitive clutter, and enter the next day with focus. The act of analyzing, learning, and planning prepares the mind to operate at peak efficiency. Without reflection, days blend into one another, lessons are lost, and improvement stagnates. With reflection, every day is a stepping stone, consciously leveraged to enhance the next. Nightly reflection is a practice that strengthens awareness, sharpens strategy, and cultivates intentionality. It transforms routine experience into purposeful learning, emotional insight, and proactive planning. By reviewing actions, emotions, patterns, and results, you build a framework for continuous improvement. Each night becomes an opportunity to evaluate, refine, and prepare. Reflection ensures that progress is not accidental, effort is meaningful, and tomorrow is approached with clarity, focus, and determination. Over time, this disciplined nightly practice becomes a cornerstone of personal growth, resilience, and daily success, enabling you to take decisive, consistent action every day.